see homework.
Okay, and Yuliya, you can ask let's do the audio test, ask the audience.
How many do we have already?
We are up to 40 people watching.
40 people, wow.
Ask the audience about the audio.
Hi everyone, we are about to start. Before we start, we want to check if you hear us well, if the audio is good. Please write that in the comment area.
Is the volume on that thing?
Yeah, we turned that off.
Okay.
Talent Photography says hi.
Hello. Tell us where you guys are joining us from.
First, let's do the audio test. I want to make sure the audio is good.
Okay, did we get any response?
There's a little bit of a delay. And then someone says there's an echo a little bit as well.
Echo, we are having some echo issues.
Well, we just removed it.
Okay, yeah, our volume was on the computer. So, how about now? Can everyone hear us well? No echo?
It's still a little bit of an echo.
Okay, we're still having some issues. Okay, we'll try to fix it now.
Yeah, we shouldn't have any more echo right now.
Let's try it again. Hello everyone, please let us know if we were experiencing any echoes, or if you can hear me well, if you can see me well.
There's still a lot of echo. No.
Okay, can we fix that, the echo issue?
Yeah, it's all still here echo.
Echo and static.
Okay, we're trying to fix that. Meanwhile, we're waiting for everyone to join the chat room and our live session. You can introduce yourself and tell us where you're joining us from. This way we can interact and talk to each other.
Someone asked, how was your birthday?
Oh, well, my birthday was amazing. Thank you so much. I was spoiled by my friends and family, so it's always nice to celebrate your birthday.
We have Vaughn from Las Vegas.
Hello, hello.
And then Ashley Graham joining in from Orlando.
Ashley. Hello, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining.
Okay, so it's live, so we're gonna have some sort of echo, especially with my voice. I'm all the way back here.
Also, maybe we have echo because of the room. I don't know. Could that be an issue?
But as long as they can hear you, as they can hear you.
Yes, I believe everybody can hear me since they say we have some echo. Okay, we cannot change anything, right, at this point?
No, I checked all the levels are good here.
Whoever is celebrating Easter in Europe, happy Easter, by the way.
They said they can understand it clearly.
Okay.
As long as you can hear me and you can see me, because it's going to be more visual, so we're fine.
Okay. We're ready to start again.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm Yuliya Panchenko. I'm a boudoir and portrait photographer. I'm based in Florida, United States, and today we're doing a live session on posing. But before we start, I want as many people as possible to join the live session. I want to introduce our new intern, Helena. She's here with us today. She's a student at Full Sail University, and she's going to be pretty much your voice. So whatever questions you're going to ask, she's going to read for me and help me with the live session. Helena, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Helena Hunter. I am a student at Full Sail University and studying to be a cinematographer. We currently have a lot of visual art programs, so if you're into the arts, that's definitely the place to be looking at.
Full Sail is in Central Florida, so it's one of the best universities on visual arts. Tell us a little bit. What do you do? I know you do photography. So what kind of photography? Tell us. You can check on her Instagram page. By the way, it's going to be in the description. Just tell us a little bit what kind of photography you like to do.
Right now, I'm studying to get my drones license. It is quite a process, but I am working on it. And I dabble in underwater cinematography. For photography, I'm more of a long exposure, nature, unlike the portrait photography poses we'll be discussing today. But I also do love learning about the poses that we're going to hear about today.
Well, thank you so much for helping us today. And we are about to start the live session. Again, today we are talking about posing. So it's going to be more about fundamentals of posing, and the posing that we're going to talk about, I use it for boudoir photography, but you can apply it to any genre. It can be applied to wedding, to bridal photography, to maternity, to regular portraiture. So if you learn fundamentals, I would say you can create your own pose, you can do anything with that. So ask your questions. Meanwhile, we're gonna do a couple of breaks in between my presentations, so feel free to ask any questions you have, write comments, and Helena, she's gonna read those comments for me and I'll answer all your questions. If we have any good comments or anything that you want to read, go and we'll start in a minute.
No new comments, but we're up to 61. 61 people are watching.
Well, tell us where you're joining us from, which countries or which states. And thank you so much, 61 people. That's amazing. I promise after this live presentation, you will have at least some knowledge on posing that you maybe haven't learned about yet. So I'm super excited to show you what I've learned or within the 7 years of my experience doing boudoir photography.
We have Camille saying hello and a Brian from Boston. And we also have someone viewing from South Germany.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Hi, Brian. All right, so let's start, and probably I'm going to be standing for the presentation because can you see? Yeah?
Yeah. And just a quick note, so somebody recommended to turn off one of the mics. So Helena, when you want to tell something, just look at me, so I'll turn on your mic and I'll turn off Yuliya, so that's what turn off, so I will do the same thing. Alright. So you can just explain what I just said.
They about mics?
Yeah.
Why do they need to know that?
So I'm going to switch.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to posing, especially for boudoir, we want to create triangles and we want to accentuate those curves. Posing is extremely important for boudoir photography and for photography in general. That's what makes a simple, maybe not as interesting pose different from really flattering and dynamic pose. That's posing and lighting. We're not talking about lighting today, but we're going to talk about posing and fundamentals of posing. So the two very important elements in posing for boudoir, again, are triangles and curves. We want to create triangles and we want to accentuate those curves. So when we talk about triangles, first of all, we need to understand what triangle is. We need to find those triangles and then we have to create those triangles. So what triangle is? It's pretty much anything that has two sides and one corner. I call them triangles. You can call them anything, but to me it's a shape. For example, if I bend my knee, I create one triangle over here. If I bend my elbow, my arm, I will create another triangle here and another triangle here. So we have to understand what triangles are. We have to look for those triangles because not only we create those triangles, our body naturally has some triangles. For example, over here, the chin and connection of the chin and the neck creates that natural triangle. Or if I cross my leg, now I can create more than two triangles, probably like around 3 triangles right here where you see. So it's very natural, or we can again bend legs or arms or even wrist and we create those triangles. So that makes our pose look flattering, looks interesting, and looks more dynamic, I would say. When it comes to curves, when it comes to curves, we have to accentuate the existing curves. If triangles we're creating, with triangles we are actually creating those triangles, but with curves we just have to find those curves and we have to accentuate those curves. And women's body is curvy. Some women are curvier than others, and depending on who you're photographing, you have to see if we need to accentuate those curves more or less. For example, I'm a slim girl, so probably with me I need to push out as much as possible to create and to accentuate those curves. With curvy models, maybe you don't need to push those curves as much because naturally she is curvy already. So where we have to look for those curves? Hips, those are natural curves of women's body. Breast, those are also natural curves. The curve of the back, when we arch, this is natural curve. Curve of the booty, this is natural curve, and even curve of the foot. So if I stand on my tippy toes, I kind of create these natural, beautiful curves curve in my foot. So even wrist, depending on how we bend the wrist, we can create a natural, beautiful curve over here, or fingers. So we have to look for those curves and we have to accentuate them, and we will talk about later exactly how we do it. Any questions on that? Mike or Helena?
No new questions, but we have someone just joined from Turkey. Saying hello.
Hello, hello, Turkey. I've been to Istanbul probably 4 times, and that's one of my favorite countries, and I want to go there again, especially Istanbul. I love Istanbul. Oh, by the way, my husband took me to a Turkish restaurant for my birthday, so that was really nice, and I really enjoyed food. Okay. Any questions on posing? So guys, remember when posing, especially when posing for boudoir, we want to create triangles and we want to accentuate curves to make our subject's body look flattering. So flat poses, straight arms, straight legs usually go against the nature of boudoir, and if we want to create more artistic, beautiful, flattering image, then we have to work on posing. So today, during this live class, I'm going to show you fundamentals of posing from toes to head. And we're starting from feet, then we'll talk about legs, arms, and facial expressions. Before we start, I want to also mention that today is just like a small we're covering only a small portion on posing, but if you want to learn more about posing, about lighting, about marketing, we have a boudoir photography master course bundle that covers all these topics. And it's about over 20 classes in that bundle course, and you can learn also about my best-selling poses. It's like a lot of information in one course, and it's currently on 25% off, so you can take advantage of that. Also, we are doing international workshop tour. We're traveling from state to state, and this year we're doing it in the United States, and next year we are traveling to Europe, South America, South Africa, Australia, and I'm super excited about that. So if you want to learn more on boudoir photography, about posing, lighting, marketing, join us for one of our workshops. Our next workshop is going to be in Raleigh and then in New York. But to learn more about workshops, you just click on the link in the description and it will take you to the information about the workshop tours. So that's it about the workshop and the bundle course that we have. Any questions?
A few. Someone asked if for the curved body, what is preferred, triangles or curves?
We're maybe accentuating, we're focusing less on curves, I would say, but we're still working with triangles because with the curvy models, they're naturally curvy, so we don't have to push much. We may even want to make them look even less curvy, if that makes sense. So we're focusing on triangles in this case, and depending on the pose, and we'll talk about it when we're explaining how to pose hips, we may even push those curves away from the camera to make them look slimmer. So, but we will talk about it, but great question.
Yeah, I also have someone asked how to work with a model that has a belly, any poses for that?
Yes, if we have, if my subject is not happy with her belly, we always go for poses that maybe the belly is not the main focus, so the eye is not going to So we're like focusing mainly on other parts of the body, let's say the hip, the booty, the back, or we can cover something with fabrics, that works perfectly, or we will when we arch, that also flattens the stomach a lot. So there's some tricks and there's some poses that work for people who are very insecure about their belly, and we will also talk about it during the when I'm explaining the fundamentals of each body part. Okay, so let's start from posing feet. So we're doing posing from head, from toes to head, and when it comes to boudoir photography, we want to point our toes. Any pose I work on, my model, my subject, always pointing her toes. And throughout the session, I constantly say, hey, point your toes, point your toes. What it does, it makes, it elongates the leg, first of all. For example, if I'm laying and doing a laying pose. Oh, I can see myself. That's very helpful. Thank you. All right. So, for example, and I'm gonna take off my shoes for this, so you could see my pretty feet. All right. So, for example, if I keep my feet flat, and if I point my feet a little bit. Can you make the whole picture? I don't focus on my feet. I want everyone to see, let's say, this is before and this is after. You can see how just pointing my toes, it elongates my legs, and it looks just more elegant, flattering, and I look kind of taller. My legs look longer. And the same now can you show the whole body? Yes. So the same when it comes to sitting poses. So this is kind of very casual, but as soon as I point those toes, or I can put them kind of like on my tippy toes type of thing, so it makes the pose looks flattering, looks elegant, and it also elongates my legs. When I'm standing, the same applies for standing poses. For example, for standing poses, I always go for poses on the tippy toes. So, for example, like this. Again, I look taller, I look more elegant, and when I'm on my tippy toes, I also push my booty out, and I keep my back, I arch my back, and also that flattens the stomach area as well. So, highly recommend. Every pose you do, pay attention to her toes and constantly point your toes. What you should avoid is dirty feet. So, and it happens all the time. The pose looks great, she looks amazing, but then her feet are dirty because she was walking on the floor and just made her feet really dirty. I would highly recommend to keep some baby wipes in your studio, and before you continue, please clean her toes. I always call it like an extra bonus service to my clients, and they feel very special when I start cleaning their feet, and they're super happy and the images look great. So keep that in mind. Avoid dirty feet when you photograph for boudoirs. Anything else I forgot to mention? I think I covered everything. So another thing that, and it's my personal choice, I always go for, I don't like when my clients bring in too many shoes options, so I always photograph my clients barefoot, because I think women's feet they have its own beauty, I would say, and it's easier to pose when you don't wear shoes. I think it's more natural, more sensual, more elegant. So I'm not a big fan of high heels during the session. Sometimes my clients bring high heels, but we can use it for a couple of shots. But I always stay away from those because, again, first of all, it's difficult to pose when you're wearing shoes, when you're wearing high heels. Second, it's without shoes, it's more elegant and more interesting and more natural for women to pose. Any questions on that?
Give it 60 seconds for people to ask questions.
The comment section is still saying that there's some audio feedback.
It's because we have the natural echo in this room. It's not soundproof. Tell them sorry. Tell them I said sorry. Any questions?
Not at the moment, no.
Let's continue to posing legs. When it comes to posing legs, what we want to create, we have to create triangles, first of all. We are creating patterns and interesting, it's mainly triangles and patterns. So for example, we want to bend our knee to create those triangles, and that applies to any pose: sitting, kneeling, standing, laying. So for example, if I'm standing, I would bend my knee and I would cross it over and I would push my hip, and this way, and if you can show the full body now, this way I'm creating this beautiful triangle with my legs. Another way for standing poses, I would, and I mentioned that earlier, I would cross my legs, and this way I would create those natural triangles. I would create 3 triangles while crossing legs like that. And it doesn't matter if I photograph, if I'm photographing from front or sideways or from the back. In all positions, it looks absolutely gorgeous. So we're either, for standing poses, we're either pushing the hip away and bringing this knee over, creating this triangle, or we can cross the legs like this, and we are creating triangles by crossing legs. When we are in a laying position, we're doing the same way. So we keep one leg slightly bent and another one is bent and crossing kind of over like that. So what it does, it pushes my hip a little bit more, you see? So if it's not enough room for me, hold on, let me move this. Okay, so for example, if I'm keeping them straight, it's not as natural and flattering, and it doesn't accentuate my curves. But as soon as I push this, I bend this knee and I push it forward, I also create this natural, beautiful curve of my body. When we are in a slightly different position, for example, if I'm posing on my back, I would bend both of my knees. So, and I would slightly push them away from each other to create more dynamic pose by creating 1 triangle, 2 triangles. So now we have a pattern here. A mistake that happens and that you have to avoid and keep in mind is keeping knees slightly away. So that's not flattering at all. You have to keep those knees together. And again, if you could push bring this one leg a little bit lower than another one, that adds a little bit more interesting, makes the pose a little bit more interesting and dynamic. So when we are sitting in a sitting position, we do the same thing. We bend our knees to create 1 or more triangles. So in this position, and it doesn't matter what you're posing on. For example, if we have a stool like that, again, we want to create those triangles by bending our knees. So we have one triangle, two triangle. Even if we cross our legs, again, we are creating those triangles. If we're sitting on a different chair, or let's say I have a posing tube here, in a sitting position, again, I would position my subject in a way that I can clearly see those triangles. So pose like that looks nice. Yeah, knees together, legs together. But as soon as we separate a little bit, we are creating more triangles, and the pose looks more dynamic, more interesting. So that's what we have to look for when we're posing legs. Okay? Any questions on that?
Gloria asks, what positions do you recommend for a beginner photographer, and also what kind of takes? All body, half body, or cropped?
Good question.
Wait, hold on. Go.
For beginner photographers, I would go for, it doesn't matter what pose you're working on. What matters is to master at least 5 to 10 poses. So you master 5 to 10 poses, you know them well, you can apply it to any model or client you're working with. And the second question was?
What kind of takes? All body, half body, or cropped?
And that's the flow. So with my flow, let's say I pose my model, right? So let's say this is the pose I was going for. I would go for full body because I love full body shots. Boudoir photography is all about the body, the art of body, and I go for that full body shot. Then in my flow, I go for a medium shot, and now you're gonna see, do the medium shot. And then I go for a close-up shot with the main focus on her face. So that's going to be my flow. This way, not only you create a couple of different poses, but you have variety of images to choose from during the reveal session. So also I would add angles. So let's say you photographed your subject you did the full body shot, you did the crop shot, and then medium shots, or in the close-up shot. Then I would change also my angles and photograph her from different angles. And this way, from one single pose, I can achieve up to 10 different images that are not looking exactly the same, if that makes sense.
There's one more question. How would you communicate with an amateur model and make them more comfortable?
Amateur model. Okay, I'm giving 60 seconds between the question and just I guess it's the technical thing that I don't understand.
Give me about 10 seconds to switch from your mic to the other. I'm turning off the mics. Yeah.
Okay, we're switching mics when we're talking, that's why. Okay, got it. So 10 seconds in between. When you're working with amateur, well, when you're working with any model, you have to direct them. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you have to master the pose, and then you communicate that pose with, it doesn't matter, amateur or professional model. For beginners, I would recommend to work with professional models. This way, you learn something from them. And when you wanna come up with the posing flow, or you wanna practice with posing, you can do that with a professional model, and at the same time get great images from her, and maybe get a good feedback and practice. It's just like the whole session will be much easier for you if you're working with professional. Again, if you're not working with a professional model and she expects you to pose her, I would prepare for the session. I would create a mood board. I would remember those poses, or I would keep them somewhere on my computer, the whole mood board, and when I pose and I work with that model, I would look at the mood board and I would create and try to create exactly the same image. So meanwhile you're learning, you're practicing, and it's even better because if you're working with someone who doesn't know how to pose, it will give you more confidence and it will give you more practice when you start communicating those poses to them. So I hope it makes sense. But either way, amateur, professional, it's a great way to practice in general and build your portfolio and practice those poses and learn new poses with them. More questions? Okay, so we talked about posing feet, posing legs. Now let's move to our next part. Body part is hips. So when it comes to hips, we want to accentuate the curves by pushing hip to the side all the way. And to do that, we're going to bend the knee, cross it over, and push the hip to the side as much as possible. So it doesn't matter what pose we're working on, laying or standing. Sitting is pretty much, it's mainly work for standing or laying poses where we want to push the hip and accentuate that nice curve or female body. So when we're working with slim models, we want to push that hip towards the camera because whatever is closer to the camera makes it look larger. But when we're working with curvy models, we want to push that hip away from the camera to make the hip looks smaller. If you can zoom out for a second. So let me show you one more time. So when we're working with slim models, we want to push this hip towards the camera to make the hip looks larger. That's what I would go for. And if you're working with, I would go for if I'm photographing myself. And if you're working with curvy models, again, push that hip away from the camera. And now let's talk about posing arms. So when it comes to posing arms, we want to create triangles. Any questions for this?
Sorry, one more time. All right.
Eric would like to know if we will get the same favorable effect by crossing legs on curvy models.
Yes. Yeah. Especially. So let me show you. Okay, sorry. We're switching mics. I forget all the time. So yes, it would be the same effect. The only difference with curvy models, when I cross the legs, cross over knee or the legs? The legs, I guess, right?
The legs.
Okay, when we're crossing the legs with curvy models, I would keep the hips on the same level because she's curvy enough and that's going to look just nice. If let's say we want to slim this area, I would do it sideways. So this way, the mid area is like it just makes it look slimmer when we're photographing women sideways. If we're photographing slim models, then I would even push the hip to the side when she's in a position like that to make this hip looks bigger. I hope it makes sense. Any more questions?
At the moment.
Okay, now we're good? Okay, let's talk about posing arms. When it comes to arms, we want to create triangles. We want to create patterns, interesting shapes, and we also look for negative space. That's very important. How we create triangles, as I mentioned earlier, we want to bend whatever bends to create as many triangles as possible. So we want to create our triangles by bending elbows, and this way we are creating interesting, flattering, and dynamic poses. So we can do it with by bending both of our elbows or just one. So depending what pose you're going for. The common mistake that many photographers or models do, when they bring arms closer to the face, what is happening, they block, like if we bring our arms closer to the face, we're blocking the face. Instead, what we have to do, we have to frame our subject's face in this triangle. So no matter if it's one triangle or two triangles, we have to frame it in this triangle. So we have to keep in mind the negative space. And that's one of the common mistakes that many models, many photographers do. So why models do that mistake is because they don't see themselves, so they don't feel, they don't know how close their, let's say, chin and their arm is to each other. But we as photographers, we see that. And we have to ask just to bring this hand a little bit lower, closer to the forehead, to avoid that kind of blocking.
Did you lose signal?
You just lost it.
I don't know if people even see.
Can you ask if you can see this?
Okay, who's that?
I don't see it. Okay. Yes. Okay. We were experiencing some technical issues. Sorry about that. I think we got interrupted on the arms. Okay. So we as photographers, we have to see and we have to notice if our model is bringing this hand or this arm, close to her face, blocking or creating that bulk effect. We have to just mention to us to bring the hand a little bit closer to the forehead to create that separation, that negative space, and frame her face in this triangle. And that applies to pretty much every pose. And I see that happens a lot in the laying position. For example, especially in boudoir photography, we mainly work with those triangles and we bring those arms here to create those interesting, flattering, dynamic shapes and poses. So we work a lot with our arm closer to the face. So again, if we do it too close, we're losing the shape. If we're bringing it a little bit away, then we are keeping that face framed in this triangle and we still have separation. So keep that in mind. The negative space is very important. Also, if we bring second arm and creating additional triangle, we're just adding interesting pattern. We're creating pattern now, so the pose looks even more flattering, even more dynamic. Another common mistake is bringing this arm closer to the camera, and as I mentioned earlier, whatever is closer to the camera looks bigger. So let's say if you're working with curvy model and women who are insecure about their arms, I would keep them away from the camera, positioning them on this side, so not closer to the camera but away from the camera. So keep that in mind. When we're posing arms on the level of our hips, I would avoid keeping them on the same level. I would bring one arm lower than another one, and again that just adds a little bit more elegance. When we are holding our arms or bending our elbows, and it's pretty much with any position, like over here, or in a laying position, let's say over here, we want to avoid keeping elbows out. So this is not as flattering as if you bring them kind of a little bit, just a teeny bit in. That adds more sensuality to that pose. The same over here. So when we're standing here and we want to bring it slightly in, and the same over here. We want to bring them in, and this way we're accentuating and highlighting the hourglass shape of our subject's body. So yes, we can go for this, but that's going to be editorial, okay? We have to keep them in. And the same when we're in a laying position. For example, if we go for a pose where our hand is on the hip, I would go all the way in. So I would push it in to highlight, to accentuate this curve, okay? Another common mistake that happens when we are photographing our subject from behind, sometimes, and that's not intentionally, we cut arms, and that's not flattering at all. For example, if we want to photograph our subject, let's say by the wall, right? And we ask her to position her hands on the wall, and we do something like this, so where the hand and arm is not visible, then so it will look like this. I don't know if do you feel like I'm missing one arm?
Yes.
Does it look like I'm missing one arm? Yeah, so we want to bring it, at least we want to give a hint of, okay, this girl has 2 arms. So we even showing the hand, or kind of a little bit of elbow or something. So that's why when I just showed you a pose when I was laying on my side, I kind of, my arm is hidden, but I have this hand over here that makes like everyone know that I have arms. So because I have a hand on my hip right here, so that's very important. But if I didn't have it here like that, then it would look kind of weird. So I'm missing one arm. We also don't, but I'll talk about it later. Sorry. All right. Any questions on posing arms?
Someone is photographing a woman that only has one leg. Do you have any suggestions for triangles on that? A woman's being photographed that only has one leg. Do you have any suggestions on posing for that?
Who has only one leg? You know what? I've never worked with any subject like that, so I don't know.
And then we also have a question on, do you have any suggestions for kneeling poses?
Photograph for kneeling poses, posing arms or legs?
Legs.
Okay. For kneeling poses, okay. So if we're working on kneeling poses, for example, if we are, would that be kneeling poses, right? Considered like this, right?
Yeah, we can use the couch. Think of it as a floor.
So if it's, this is kneeling pose, right? So it's not, yeah, it's kind of on your knees, yeah. So when we're on the kneeling, in the kneeling position, I would avoid to keep the booty close to the surface. So to keep the shape of the booty exactly as it is, I would ask my model, my subject, to lift her body a little bit up. This way, we're not, we're having the shape, we're not disturbing, or like, how do I say it? Squishing? Smashing those butt cheeks, if that makes sense. So yeah, that would be my recommendation on that, and I see many people, they do that, and it's not as flattering, especially if you're working with curvy models, plus size models. That's a suggestion that I would do. So if you are in a kneeling position on the floor, for example, like that, I would still cross my legs in the shin level. So that would be also interesting. Or I would probably bring my legs a little bit up, and this way I'm creating still triangles. So I would keep them either together, or I would cross and create even more triangles. In this situation, your posture is very important. And that's what we're going to talk about now. It's arching back. So that's our next topic. But arching back in this situation would be extremely important. This way, you're not only creating triangles when you're crossing your legs and bringing them up, but you're also creating that S shape by arching and bringing the booty out. So one thing that I forgot to mention with when we are accentuating curves, we are looking for the S shape all the time. So we're creating triangles and we're creating those S shapes.
For the kneeling, for the legs.
That's not kneeling. Kneeling is something that when you're on the knees. Okay. More questions?
We're getting a couple of repeats of the previous question. If you could just address it again, it would be great. On getting the actor to be, or the model, sorry, feel major here. Getting the model to be a little more comfortable if they're just beginning in boudoir.
If you're a beginner in the model, the model feel comfortable. Okay, to make anybody feel comfortable when you're a beginner is to create your workflow. So that comes to practice and comes with practice and preparation. When you have a workflow and you know that, okay, today I'm going for 5 poses, and I know that I'm starting this pose, I'm starting from pose on the bed, then I move to the pose laying on the bed, then sitting on the bed, then kneeling on the bed, then from bed poses I'm moving to the floor and I do a couple of poses on the floor. So if you know exactly your workflow, you will look professional, you will look confident, and when we look confident and professional, believe me, the subject that you're working with is going to be more comfortable. But as soon as the subject sees that, okay, something is going on, you don't know what exactly, like you see that the person doesn't know what exactly he or she is doing, then that level of confidence goes down and the whole experience is ruined. So no matter if you're a beginner photographer or not, the workflow and the posing flow is crucial for boudoir photography to make your client and your model looks and feel comfortable. I wanted to mention something else, and that just skipped my mind. There was another point I wanted to talk about, but if I remember, I'll mention that as well. More questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Oh my goodness, that was very good point that just came my mind. We were talking about arms, right? Okay, we talked about arms. Now we're gonna talk about back. So we always want to arch our back to create a flattering pose, no matter what pose we're going for, sitting, standing, kneeling, doesn't matter. We arch our back. What it does, it creates that S, it like creates beautiful curve. It creates that S shape and it brings the booty out, which makes the booty looks bigger, and it makes our stomach looks flat. So that's the tip I was somebody asked earlier, how to make the stomach area looks flattering. So that would make it looks better, and it just makes us look more elegant. So again, doesn't matter what pose you're working on, ask to arch her back. And I always ask my clients if they have any, if they had any surgeries, if they had any back issues, just to know how, like, if it's safe for them or not to arch it a lot, or just in general ask your clients if they had any surgeries or if they have any problems with their body. Because when we arch, when we stretch, or when any pose we're working on for boudoir, it requires a lot of tension, I would say, and stretching, and my clients usually feel sore in a couple of days after the session. So let's say it's some sort of exercise workout for you, or like a yoga for you. So keep that in mind. So that was all about posing back. And now let's move to posing shoulders. So when it comes to shoulders, I see common mistake that models do. They bring, or that happens mainly with clients. So what they do, they bring their shoulders up. When we bring shoulders up, we make this area looks bigger, and what we want to see instead is the beautiful line of our client's neck. So when we push our shoulders down, we can now clearly see the line of the neck, which is gorgeous. This is what we need to see in photographs. So pushing the shoulders up, it just makes the neck look shorter and not as flattering. If you're working with models, if you're going for editorial style where they should do all that, and she is like very slim, and yeah, maybe that doesn't matter, because those slim models, they have long necks. No matter how much they bring it up, it still looks gorgeous. But when we're working with regular clients, trust me, this will work better for them. And that's what I notice with every client I work with. For some reason, they always push their shoulders up. So throughout the session, I remind them, bring the shoulders down, relax your shoulders, bring the shoulders down. So that will help to accentuate the line of my models or my client's neck. Any questions on that?
How to make a male photographer, a male model more comfortable with a male photographer in boudoir.
We'll talk about male soon.
We'll talk about posing male in a little bit, and I'll answer that question. We'll talk a little bit more about photographing male. So remember the question and just remind me, and I'll answer that, okay?
Again, question about the audio. Let them know that the audio is like all the way down here. That's what is getting the echo. I don't have echo with Yuliya, but I have echo with you.
I can bring it up.
Bring it a little bit closer to you.
Yeah, and let me know if now it's a little bit better, because the mic is closer to me.
Just face it in.
And yeah, it's sliding down, so I hope it's going to stay. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, let me know if that works. It makes the audio looks better, sounds better, looks better. All right, so now let's move to posing hands. Yeah. So when posing hands, we want to keep our hands soft and look natural. So what we want to avoid is hands that look like a claw, a fist, or fingers on like separated fingers on the same level. So what we want to achieve is natural looking hand or soft hand where all fingers are kind of slightly on different levels, where pinky is closer to the camera. That just looks more elegant. It will make the hand look smaller if the pinky is facing the camera. And it's sometimes really difficult to achieve soft and natural looking hands from the clients, but that little detail will make the photograph look different, trust me, those hands. So what I usually ask my clients to do is to wiggle their hands. Can you lower the camera? So to wiggle hands and then position them back to where it was. If that doesn't help, then I would ask to, let's say, start kind of moving hand from up to down, depending again what pose I'm going for, and then that action will make that hand looks a little bit more relaxed, and then I'll stop. And then it looks kind of more natural. So if that doesn't work, which usually doesn't, if we have real issue with hands, then I would ask to hold on something. I will give a glass of wine, or I'll ask to hold on a fabric. And when we're holding on something, it just looks more natural for us, and we forget about it. Don't concentrate or don't remind your clients, soften your hands, soften your, that just, when we keep talking about it, if you notice, they will start thinking about their hands only, and they're gonna, it's just gonna get really difficult to achieve those soft hands. So don't focus on that too much. Just give something to hold on. I think that would be really helpful. And again, hands is one of the, posing hands properly is one of the most important elements when you're posing body parts. So sometimes the pose, the facial expression, everything looks good, but then that position of hand or that unnatural looking hand, stiff hands make a big difference. And people, you need to achieve as many good photographs to make a better sale. Now let's move to facial expressions, and then we will continue with questions. Facial expressions are also important. It's part of the posing, and it's part of the posing flow. So in boudoir photography, we work with happy expression, facial expression, with naughty facial expression, with sensual, seductive, what else? Confident, naive, and I would go with all of them as a flow. So for example, I would first ask my client to look at the camera and give me a smile, so that would be happy, and ask to recall a happy moment. So I'll ask to look at the camera and give me a smile. Then I would ask to turn her face a little bit away to her shoulder, look down, and give me more kind of like very relaxed, naive type of facial expression. And then I would ask to giggle and smile and give more like a casual look, and then look back and bite on her lip, and then give more of a seductive look, more sensual. Or if none of that works and the client is still not happy with the facial expression because she thinks that everything looks good, but her face is not very photogenic, then what you can do, and that tricks work for everybody. So what you ask her to do is to close her eyes, to inhale, keeping lips slightly apart, keeping breath for a second, And that just looks so sensual, so natural, and everybody can do that. So let me show that again. Closing eyes, inhaling, keeping lips slightly apart, and holding that for a second. Trust me, everybody can do that. So if she's not happy with the seductive look of hers or happy look of hers, then go for that and she'll be happy. I noticed that 50% of the photographs that my clients choose are with their eyes closed. I don't know what it is about that they like, but maybe because it looks more natural and sensual, but they love it and it works all the time. And keep in mind the posing flow. So what I do, I want the facial expression match the personality of my client, and when we start we don't know how exactly that person, what that person's personality is, so we have to experiment and go through all these facial expressions. And what I do after I'm done with all the facial expressions within a couple of minutes, then I'll show those images to my client and ask her opinion. It's okay to ask her opinion. I'm gonna ask, don't worry about the poses, just look at your facial expression and tell me what exactly you like about yourself. And sometimes they say, oh, I love the smiley images, when the images where I'm smiling more, or some people can say, oh, I love where I look more serious. So this way I know, okay, she likes herself more serious, probably that's her personality, and when I photograph I direct her that way. So it's very important to understand what your client likes at the beginning session, so you won't waste all this 1 hour, 2 hours of session thinking that this is her personality probably, or this is according to your taste looks better and works better for her, when in fact she doesn't like it. So don't be afraid to show those images to your client, and also makes your client a little bit feel excited and interact with your client, engage your client from the beginning of the shoot. I was scared when I was just starting out doing boudoir. I was scared of showing those images to my client because I was thinking, oh, what if they don't like something? But then I realized, no, they actually like the fact that they're gonna see during the session what they're gonna get, and that makes them more relaxed, more confident, and they trust me more, and it just works. So trust me on that. That was about facial expressions. Any questions on that?
It's not on facial expressions, but what focal length would you recommend to keep angles and proportions more natural?
Focal length and the choice of your lens depends on the shape of your client, of your subject you're photographing. I work with 50 millimeter all the time. It works pretty much for everybody, but 70 to 200 is another choice of lens. Somewhere in 85 probably, with a focal length of 85 would work. If I'm working with slim models, 24 to 70, that's my preference for curvy models. So that lens will make them look slimmer, and 50 or 70 to 200 for slimmer clients. More questions? No. Okay. That was my backdrop. Keep in mind how much time do we have? Okay, let me start from workflow. As I mentioned earlier, workflow is very important. You have to create your workflow in your head, and it's not only workflow in the studio, but also posing workflow. So for example, I know that I start my workflow, let's say, from poses on the bed. I have my bed set up, let's say, on this side of the studio, and then I set up my couch on the other side, and then my chair on the opposite side. So I have already 4 setups prepared for the session. Then I ask before we start photographing, I go through the wardrobe, through the lingerie that she brings, and then we decide what color would work for which setup. So let's say she brought something green or black or maybe gray or whatever. So I would say, okay, this green would work on my green wall, so we're going to start with this. And then when I start posing on the bed, I keep in mind my workflow, my posing flow on the bed. So I start from poses, let's say, that are more simple, less complicated. For example, poses on the belly. Then from belly, I would turn to the side because that's the most convenient way of turning on the bed. So, for example, from the belly, I would turn to the side, and from here, I would go for a variety of poses by just repositioning my arms or my legs a little bit. From here, I would turn to poses on the back, and I will do a couple of poses, different poses on my back. From there, I would do poses, sitting poses on the bed, and then from there, I would maybe do some standing poses on the bed. So you see there is a flow. I know the flow. I keep that flow in my mind all the time. And then from that setup, I move to another setup. And the same. That setup, let's say, is all about posing on this stool. So I'll take the stool and I see what lingerie she's going to wear. When she's posing on the stool, it should be completely something different, maybe a different color palette in a different area of your studio. And then I'll go the same, sitting on the stool, leaning against the stool, standing behind the stool, whatever you can come up. And then from there to the poses by the wall, on the floor, and so on and so on. And by the way, in the course, in our boudoir photography master course bundle, we covered all the poses on different furniture, and also poses on the bed, poses on the floor, by the wall, poses on the chair, on the bed, on the couch. So all of those poses are in the course, so keep that in mind. Now the difference between posing male and female. So when we're working with female, we want to create triangles and we want to accentuate curves. We want to create that S form, S shape when we're working with women. We're looking for we're working on more of essential poses, more elegant poses. With male, we're looking for V shapes mainly. So we are accentuating, or we are highlighting the body definition. We're looking for V. We are looking for poses that convey strength, power. So those are this is the difference between the male and female posing. We are looking for straight lines, so that works for a female we want to bend everything what we can bend and push whatever we can push to make it look kind of like interesting shape. Then with male it's fine to go for straight lines. Just a quick example, when we're posing legs for male, we want to keep maybe one knee bent, one straight, and crossing it on the shin level, like this. And that works for any position. Let's say if we're sitting, then that would be the same way, kind of like this, or like this. One leg straight, one bent. When it comes to feet, we keep them flat, we're not pointing them. When we're sitting, again, one leg can go straight, one bend, like that. I don't know how masculine I look like now, but so something like that. When it comes to arms, We can bend elbows to create the interesting shape and create triangles. So, but again, if we keep them straight, that's totally fine. So for example, we can ask to bring it kind of close to hair, or kind of brush his hair and bend it like this. In sitting, kneeling position, that would work. So there's also a course on posing male for boudoir. You can check it out. It's in the boudoir photography master course bundle. It's all about posing male. When I start photographing male, my workflow is I start from simple portraits of them wearing pants, jeans, and shirt, and then I ask to unbutton shirt, and then take off the shirt, and then unbutton the jeans, and then take off the jeans. So it would feel more comfortable when you are working with male. And if you're a female photographer working with male, I would say that would make it a little bit more comfortable for both sides. And if you're a male photographer working with male, I think it's the same thing. I would probably, if there's any male photographers that are watching us, if somebody photographed male for boudoir, please leave the comments in the comment area. Tell us what your suggestion would be as a male photographer photographing male. And share with us the experience and any advice or any suggestions. But I personally would start from portraits of a male, being a male photographer, and then continue with the flow. For example, one of my great friend photographers, John Gress, he's an amazing male portrait photographer, and he works with male, and yeah, it's all about how you put yourself out there, how you, like, you don't have to, like, if you do it, if that's your target market and you show it in your portfolio and you're proud of your images, people see it, it's just like it becomes more natural. So when they come to your studio, they know you have done that many times, and you worked with similar clients and they were happy, and the final result is amazing. So there shouldn't be any tension in the studio while you're doing that shoot. So especially for male photographers, I always recommend, if you're a male photographer and you're photographing female, then show who you are to everyone. Show your lifestyle, what you do, if you have a family or you have your hobbies, your lifestyle. Let them know who you are, so people would come to your studio. They wouldn't be like, okay, I don't know this person, what if it's what if this is a wrong studio to go to, or whatever it could be. So as a male photographer photographing female, I would work on your branding, and I would talk more about yourself, what you do, who you are, so to build that trust between you and your clients. Any questions?
They would like you to go over the package that you previously talked about in the beginning of the video a little bit more. Your master's package for your master classes.
The master course bundle includes over 20 classes on boudoir photography. This is for beginner and advanced photographers. It covers posing for boudoir, lighting for boudoir, and marketing and sales for boudoir. So it's a complete course. We also have classes on working in different environments. For example, if you're in a completely empty studio, completely empty room, how would you photograph in that environment? Or if you have one backdrop, what would you do and how would you photograph in front of the backdrop? If you don't have a studio and you have to go and photograph in a hotel, what exactly you should keep in mind when you're photographing in a hotel? Or if you want to do a shoot on the beach, we covered that topic as well. So in any type of environment, it doesn't matter if you have a studio or not, you still can be a boudoir photographer and you can do boudoir shoots, and we cover pretty much every single environment. And we have full boudoir sessions. It's a full couple boudoir photo session, full male boudoir photo session, and full female boudoir session. So you could see my flow, poses, and my lighting and everything from start to finish. We also have editing portion, so you can learn how to edit for boudoir. And anything I forgot? I think I covered everything, right? Top selling poses, yes. So there is over 100 poses that you can learn from the course, and those are my best selling poses. They're completely different poses. So each pose is completely different pose. And when you learn one pose, you can actually modify, or let's say by moving arms or legs slightly, you can achieve completely different pose, or by moving yourself around the subject, changing angles and frames, you can get additional 10 poses out of that one pose. Again, those poses they don't resemble each other. They are completely different poses, and that's what is valuable in that course. And that's also what I do when I photograph clients. I make sure that each pose that we choose for her album is a completely different pose. I don't like one pose, 300 different angles done. So that's not my style. Also, the bundle course is on 25% off, so you can take advantage of the discount, and there are a lot of valuable information, and we have lots of great feedbacks for the students. And yeah, it's a complete all information. Everything that I learned within the 7 years is in that online course. And again, if you are more into hands-on programs, classes, then I would suggest you to check on that link for our boudoir photography workshop tour and see if we're coming to your area and join us for the workshop. The workshop is a 2-day workshop where we talk about lighting, posing and marketing on Thursday, and the second day is a hands-on program where you can during which you can photograph 3 or 2 different models and build your portfolio. So it works perfectly if you, let's say, just starting out and you don't have a portfolio. That second day is going to be really helpful for you, not only to practice but also to get great images for your portfolio.
Now, is the other students Q&As right now? You open the room for Q&A.
Okay, let's ask questions. If we have any already, please read and I'll try to answer them.
Do you always sign a model release with a model?
Great question. Yes, you have to sign a model release with your models. Because you want to protect yourself and you don't want that model, especially if she's not a professional and she's just your family member or friend, to come back to you in a couple of months or years and ask you to take down the images. It happened to me, especially when I was starting out. I remember one of my friends, she asked me to photograph her, to do her boudoir session for her significant other, and then she got married, and then she asked me to take down the images because husband was against those images on internet. So it took me weeks to get in touch with every single online platform to take those images down. So it's a time-consuming process, and of course, as a friend, I wouldn't do the other way. I had to take down all the images. So yes, you have to sign the model release, and I would recommend to work with professional models only, not family and friends. More questions?
Not at the moment.
Somebody just asked how much is a course?
With 25% makes it $285. So the course is with including the 25% is $285. How many hours do we have? over 20 hours of content.
We have another question. As an annual photographer, for your salary, what is the average for boudoir?
For what type of photographer?
The salary for the boudoir.
For boudoir photography. So boudoir photography is very profitable because you offer the experience. People, your clients put trust in you, and you. It's the genre where it takes time for the session to. It's like it's an experience, I would say. So, which is why it's more profitable, because you're providing that experience, and depending on I cannot say exactly for everyone what is the average, but it is very profitable because you can upsell since it's very trendy and it's very demanding. So the demand is very high, and again, because you're providing the experience, you can charge more. But everybody charges different. But what I would recommend, not to underestimate yourself and offer a good prices to your clients to make good money. Ask more questions, and we will do another live session on marketing and packaging. So today was about posing, so it's we will cover those topics as well.
3 free webinars on the free access, so we can go through the free access.
We also offer a free access to our platform. When you sign up for the free access, you become the member of the platform. You have access to all our webinars, so you can watch. And currently we have 3 webinars on building portfolio, on selling albums, and what else? Where art meets money. So we're talking about what kind of what your boudoir photography should look like to make more money on products.
No more question. You can cut it from the questions.
How many people is there currently? Okay, some people they left. Well, thank you everyone who joined us for the live session. I hope it was something that I hope you learned something new. I hope it was interesting, entertaining, and please write your questions in the comments, and we will answer them all after we're done with the live session. So. Okay, if we have any more questions, I'll answer.
And don't forget to follow Yuliya. I don't know, what's your Instagram?
My Instagram.
Hold on. Go ahead. Hold on, wait, focus on me. Alright.
My Instagram is Helena, HELANA_Hunter.
And follow us as well. at Believe in Boudoir. That's our Instagram for the course, and my personal work you can find at YP Boudoir.
Also, really about the boudoir.
We also have YouTube channel where you can find lots of great. Yes, sure. So we are now working on series. Okay. Excuse my English. Called Better Boudoir. So every time we travel to a different state with a workshop, we also we meet with a photographer and we see what the photographer's challenges, obstacles are, and we try to solve those challenges together, and we do a YouTube video on that. So we've done 2 so far. The second one is coming soon. I don't think it's out there yet. Yeah, so it's coming soon. We were in Atlanta for a workshop and we did a session with amazing Ava Rose boudoir. So check it out when? Soon. Okay.
And also they can also follow us if they want to us to post their
Yeah, so if we're in your area, which you can find in that link in the description, just go to believeinboudoir.com/workshop. You can find all the locations for our boudoir. If we're in your area, you can message us and request to do that YouTube video on Better Boudoir with you. So we would be happy to meet with you in person, go to your studio, and do a video on any challenges that you're experiencing currently in boudoir photography.
Mike Stewart asks if you primarily sell black and white.
I love black and white because it's classic, and if my clients in a couple of years, in 10 years, they look back at their images, they're still gonna be in trend. But no, I don't do only black and white. I photograph in color, of course, and then I convert them in black and white, and I give my client both options, in color and in black and white. So if I photograph my clients on the green wall that you can see over here, if you can turn a little bit, so if I photograph them on the green wall, and there's so many colors in this area, of course I would deliver those images in color, unless I turn them into black and white and they look better, then yes, usually it's both in black and white and in color, and then we'll decide which one works better for the album. But to keep my Instagram look cohesive and consistent, I've chose black and white. That's why I post everything in black and white, and it's my favorite style for boudoir. Why I love black and white? Because when we turn the images into black and white, we have more contrast. We see more contrast. It becomes more dramatic, more sensual, and I love that in boudoir photography. So I'm not a big fan of airy and bright, and that's why I love black and white. And so moody, darker, more shadows, a little bit of highlights. More questions?
Just a lot of thank yous.
Well, thank you everyone who joined us today. Again, I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned something new, and we'll do more live sessions like that in the future, and we'll let you know when they're happening, and we'll do more Q&A. So I'll see you next time, hopefully soon. Again, thank you everyone who joined us from all these countries, and it was exciting to see you all. Please don't forget, leave your comments. If you have, leave your questions in the comment areas. If you have any, if you forgot to ask something, we'll make sure we'll answer them later. That's it. Yay. All right. Bye everyone. Thank you so much again and believe in boudoir.